Hello, my name's Andrew, and today we're talking about my 10 most used barefoot shoes of 2024. Let's get into it. So the first one is the Magna FG. I've used this barefoot shoe more than anything. It's kind of like a barefoot shoe slash boot combination. It's got this really convenient slip-on upper, so I just find myself like whenever I'm going out the door, I just automatically reach for this because I can slip my foot straight in, don't have to lace it up. Literally have never touched the laces since I first got these. They've got a wide toe box, a little more squared off on the side, which is nice. They should fit most foot shapes, maybe not extra wide if you have super splayed feet, but pretty much everything else. They've got durable eyelets here to hold onto the laces. The laces are really soft, so it's another boot that feels really great for doing pretty much anything from hiking to casual, and there's just nothing that rubs other than maybe just these side straps here. They create a little bit of pressure, but it's not a big deal, and they've got softer as I've worn the boot more. So yeah, they also have a wool blend collar, so it's ribbed as well, which creates some nice airflow versus boots that are just like all leather and then get a little bit sweaty in warmer weather. I've been building out a van for van life, and I've used these as a work boot. They've got a 5.5 millimeter sole, so it's like in the middle, you know, it's not clunky feeling, but it's got some great flexibility and protection as well. And it's got Vivo's FG1 sole, so this is a really versatile sole. It's good for firm ground, rocks and gravel and pavement and stuff like that. And it's thin enough that it feels smooth, like it doesn't feel clunky on hard surfaces. It's got a little more protection on the back here. But yeah, for hiking, the lugs are also, especially when the shoe bends, they open up a little bit more, so you get a decent amount of grip on wet terrain. I would say this boot's not the best pick if it's like super steep and super slippery. You might want something a little bit deeper on the tread, but overall, I've loved them. I've used them down to 0 degrees. If I have a wool fill insole and some merino wool and gingy toe socks. And then I've used them up to like 80 degrees, and it really helps to have this slip-on part here that's a little bit thinner, more stretchy, more breathable with the wool. So overall, an excellent pick for pretty much everything. And number 2, we've got the Totem Alpha Black Bear sandal. And this I use pretty much all summer long. I really like it because it's super lightweight and flexible. It's got an excellent toe box shape. It has this sort of squared off design at the front, which looks kind of like a Roman soldier sandal, which is really cool. But the thing that I love most about it is just like how soft the straps are. A lot of sandals you'll have problems with like rubbing, you know, it'll be a hard material, scratchy material. But with this, it's just like every single part of the sandal that could possibly rub has been covered with something soft. And you've got leather here. I think this is some kind of a microfiber blend, but it looks like a suede leather and it feels amazing. The other thing that I really love about these sandals is that they've got the toe strap here. So this helps for like trail running. It gives you more stability. I wasn't someone who thought that I was ever gonna like toe strap sandals. But when I got the totems, I really fell in love with it because the rest of the strap system is super soft, so I didn't even notice that this is there. Between your toes, it's really minimal, and it's folded over, so you don't really get any rubbing. And it didn't really take me any time at all to get used to it. So I use them for hiking, for trail running, and then in terms of the sole, it's 5mm Vibram sole, so it is very tough, but also extremely flexible. You can use it on roads, you can use it on rocks. You can even use it on some wetter terrain because when the sole bends, it opens up quite a bit. It's got some good grip there. Like I said for the Magna FG, if you're on super muddy terrain, you might want to go to something deeper, and Totem does have different options, as well as other brands that use Vibram soles too. So that's always a option. But one other thing I want to mention about the strap system, this is my favorite sandal strap system of all time. You've got this like slider here, so if you leave it towards the front, it becomes more like a flip-flop and you can just slide your foot really easily in there. So this is nice if I'm going completely barefoot, which I'll do a lot, you know, if I'm walking on like a grassy or a dirt trail. I can just put these on when I want to go across like a boardwalk that might have some splinters or something like that. It's really easy to slip on and you can slip them off. But if you're trail running on like more, you know, rocky terrain where I don't want to be fully barefoot and maybe I'm running faster, so I don't want to be paying attention or as much attention to where I'm running, I just want to like enjoy the environment. You can slide this back like all the way towards your heel, so then it creates a really nice lockdown in the back. And you know, I mean, trail running shoes are always going to be a little bit more secure than sandals, but as far as lockdown, other than maybe Shama sandals who have like an extra strap, and I think Totem now has an extra strap that you can buy. So yeah, I would say these are definitely the best for trail running and just honestly everything. I've used them on roads, for casual. They look really classy and another great option. Kind of like the Magna FG of sandals. Speaking of trail shoes, this is the Vibram V-Trek, and for a long time, these were my favorite barefoot shoes of all time. They probably still are. The only thing that holds them back is that they're not very water resistant, so I'm kind of limited in terms of what seasons I can wear them in. It doesn't matter for summer if it's hot, you know, if the water comes through, it's fine. It's got a wool blend upper, so it's, you know, it's fairly thin, but it does have some reinforcement up here. And then some little rubber stripping just to help with the durability. I've had these for 7 years, and other than this little like toe nick here, which I got from a thorn, they look fantastic. The rubber hasn't come unglued anywhere. The toes still look really good. The tread still has a lot of definition to it for being 7 years old. But anyways, they've got a wide toe box. And they're actually extra wide because the toes splay out, unlike a shoe that's just one connected piece. What I love about this is that, I mean, we have toes, right? So there's a reason for that, naturally speaking. And your toes can move separately, and especially when you're running, I find it helps because your toes can adapt to the terrain a lot faster than if you're just in kind of like one piece, you know? So these are my favorite trail running shoes. They're my favorite hiking shoes. They're really light, but the Vibram sole, it's 4 millimeters, and then you've just got like a tiny bit of padding in there, which helps on really rocky, sharp terrain to help your feet from getting beat up. But in terms of the tread, it is very durable. Vibram is definitely the toughest and most grippy rubber in the world. And it's kind of a hybrid sole because the lugs are close enough together where they provide protection on, you know, rocks and gravel and stuff like that. But again, as you bend the shoe, they sort of open up. And when you have toe shoes, these toes grip really well on steeper terrain, so it's going to perform better than a similar shoe that doesn't have toes and the same type of tread, firm ground tread. Also, for really uneven terrain, the toes help you keep from sliding back and forth and forward and back. A lot of times I'll go a half size down with toe shoes just because you can wear your toes right up to the end and it doesn't matter as much as it does in a normal shoe, and kind of having the separate toes holds your foot vertically as well. So yeah, that's my tip on sizing, but I've used them for road running too. I love the V-Trek because it has a little more flatter tread, like I said, so it works well on pavement. And overall, just a really great shoe for performance or training, trail running, hiking, all that stuff. Next up, we've got the Vivo Barefoot Ababa, and this is kind of like a shoe slipper combination. It also has a wide toe box. It is a little bit more limiting. You can see that it doesn't have quite as much volume. It gets a little bit closer here. So I'd say like the width is definitely wide, but if you're someone that has a high arch, this shoe may not work for you. But anyways, it's got a leather upper, so it's really nice for multiple seasons, whether it's hot or cold in the winter. I wear this as a slipper indoors. If I want to make it, I can wear it barefoot, and you know, because it's natural materials, I don't mind having this against my skin versus something that's synthetic. And it has really good temperature regulation, leather does. But because of this kind of tapered heel design, I find that it works really well for a shoe that I might walk longer mileage in, like city as well, as opposed to a normal slipper type shoe where it's a little bit looser and your heel's kind of like going up and down. So the lockdown's really good, but then they've got this rubber part here, which makes it easy to slide into. People often ask me if you can slide into them without holding the shoe, you know, just from standing, and it's a little bit difficult. You might have to do some wiggling, so I find it easier just to pull the tab back a little bit. I can get them out with one hand, so it's not a big deal, but you know, something to consider. And then in terms of the sole, it's a 4 millimeter sole. It's very flexible. It has a lot of grip too, so if you are someone who needs a little bit more slip protection, either because you're working in a restaurant or maybe like you have an older parent or a grandparent who needs a non-slip sole, this is a great option for that. It's got a minimal tread, so not a ton of protection there. You can take it on, you know, some light trails, but it will get worn down a little bit faster than a shoe that's meant to go on trails. But overall, it's really versatile for multiple seasons, and it's one of those shoes that does double duty, you know, because it can be a slipper, it can be a casual shoe, and it can work for multiple seasons. And then one last note is that it does have a stitched sole, as a lot of Vivo Barefoot shoes do, which helps with the durability. Going back to trails, this is the Vivo Barefoot Tracker FG. This is a really hardy boot. It's a great backpacking boot, or if you're on terrain that just requires a little more stability, you know, steep hills, unstable type of terrain, or a work boot. It is insulated, so it's a little bit better for colder weather. If you're wearing it up into like the 80s, it could get pretty hot because it is fully waterproof. But I love the leather look of this boot. This is probably my favorite boot design of all time, just because it looks so natural, you know, like they didn't go crazy with any kind of design features that would make it look, you know, like too Nike-ish. It just looks like it fits into the woods, which I love. It has a wide toe box through here, but then it does get a little bit slim towards the front. So if you're someone who has splayed out feet, this might not be the best option. You might want to check out like the Soft Star Switchback. That would be a really good pick. But the waterproofing is great. Like they look a bit dusty because I've taken them into some really deep mud and water and stuff like that. And yeah, completely waterproof. The rubber, again, seal looks really good. It hasn't come apart anywhere on the whole boot. And then for the lacing system, you've got some grommets here, which hold really well. But mostly I don't touch these. I just leave them where I set them up initially. And then you can just use the quick release at the top to get them on and off. They do have a gusseted tongue. So again, you can get pretty high into the water without anything coming in with these boots. They've got a slanted back so that even though they are higher, your ankle has a little bit more space to move, which is great for longer hikes and backpacking. And then even though they do have more support, it's definitely a very flexible boot, so it doesn't feel stiff like a traditional pack boot would. And then on the inside, you've got some nice perforation here. So it's a synthetic material, which, you know, isn't always as breathable as natural materials in my experience, but I do like when they put perforation holes like this because the breathability is quite good for being waterproof. Like I said, I wouldn't wear it into like 80 degrees, but you know, anywhere 70 and below, it's, you know, it's pretty good. And then you can go to 0 with some couple layers of Injinji toe socks and wool felt insole on the bottom for a little extra warmth. And yeah, just because they're waterproof, you know, it blocks the wind, it blocks slush and stuff like that. So they're really fantastic, nasty weather, nasty conditions boot. But then the sole is 5.5 millimeters. So again, it's kind of like that middle of the road option. Some good flexibility, but also a lot of protection like the Magna FG. It's the same exact sole. So it's a good combination of a boot that you could wear for really long mileage without it feeling clunky. But if you are on super rocky, like very sharp terrain, very uneven terrain, you might want something a little bit thicker, and they do have, Vivo Barefoot has the escape sole, so that's something to check out. For a higher cut casual boot, this is the Vivo Barefoot GOI. This is the winterized version, so it's got a little extra insulation there. This one has synthetic insulation. Usually I don't like that because it's not as breathable, but they've really puffed it up. So actually it feels great. I've never had any problems with breathability with this boot, and it really looks like wool. In general, I mean, I would love if they made a version that had merino wool or something like that, but I've been really happy with the boot. It has a wide toe box like most Vivos, that squared off shape, and it's got a lot of room. Like it's verging on extra wide just because you can open up the laces, and the sides here are really flexible. They don't limit you at all. It is a stitched sole. It's looked really good since I've used them last winter season, and we're finally getting into cold weather again, so I'm really excited to be able to break these out. But they also have the GOI, the regular version, or the GOI boot, which doesn't have the insulation. So that one's a little bit more versatile for multiple seasons. But usually for me, like if I'm wearing a higher cut boot like this, I'm kind of intending to wear it for cold weather. So the insulation is nice because then you don't always have to layer up socks. You can just get away with like, you know, one layer of Injinji toe socks, which is what I usually do unless it's super, super cold. But I also, instead of Vivo's insole, I put the wool felt insole on the bottom just because it's a little more flexible and it's also warmer. But if you do need some extra water resistance, the Vivo thermal insole with the kind of like NASA space blanket layer in between can be a nice option. Although the water resistance is really good on these boots. They've got a leather upper, it's a little bit more sheen type leather, so it sheds water very nicely. The sole comes up fairly high on the side, which is great because it provides a lot of protection, especially in the back. You can see it comes up quite high. And I've been through slush, you know, parking lot slush on trails and stuff like that, and it does a really good job of keeping the water out. It's not 100% waterproof, but it's pretty darn close. So this is a really versatile casual boot for winter. You can wear it in light trails as long as it's not too steep. You can wear it on urban terrain as well. And you could probably wear it as an indoor slipper too, because it only has a 4mm sole, so it's really flexible. And yeah, it just feels great. It feels like almost like being completely barefoot just because of how thin it is, which is really, you know, really rare for winter barefoot boot. Looking at the tread, it's, you know, fairly minimal. So you get a little bit of grip here, but mostly it's just designed to be a flexible shoe that you can use, like I said, for light trails and urban. For super wet trails, my go-to is the Vivo Barefoot Magna Light Water Resistant Soft Ground. It's a mouthful, but it's a very light shoe. It's got a lot of flexibility. That same slip-on Magna upper, which is nice for convenience, but also because it provides a little more security, especially for a thinner shoe. It just kind of holds your ankle in place, more so than just having laces. I basically never touch laces, like I said. It has the same problem as the Magna FG with a little bit of pressure here, but not so much as the Magna FG because the materials are thinner. Instead of wool, it's got a synthetic upper, so I think the breathability is not quite as good, but it is a very thin shoe. The front is wide, it's got a good amount of room, and the material is so thin and flexible that it really doesn't limit your feet at all. So this is probably one of the widest options that Vivo Barefoot has. It is a water resistant upper, but like I said, it's pretty thin. So some people have complained about it not being as water resistant as they'd like, and that's certainly true. If you try to like wade into a stream, it's gonna splash up through the Magna upper here, unfortunately. But I use this boot, or shoe boot, for running mostly, or faster hiking. So if you pair that with a pair of Injinji merino wool toe socks, what it does is that even if your feet start to get a little damp, in cold weather, the merino will actually regulate your temperature. So it actually like freakishly gets warmer when it's wet. I don't understand how that works, some kind of black magic. But also it wicks moisture away from your feet. So if you're running, you know, if you're fast or hiking, you're generating a lot of heat, and that's helping move the moisture away from your body. So I find that I would rather have a boot like this that has good breathability than have something waterproof, because once your feet get wet, either from water splashing over or from your feet perspiring inside the boot, if you have a waterproof boot, it's really hard for that to get out, especially when you're running, you know. So yeah, you sacrifice some water resistance or some waterproofing if you're going for something that's light, but yeah, that's how I would go. It also does have ripstop, so even though it's very thin, it can resist a bit of, like, you know, if a thorn snags on here, it may help prevent it from tearing out the whole thing. It might just create a little small hole, or it might not tear it at all. They've got reinforcement here, which I think the strip is kind of cool. I've never seen any shoe brand do this before, but I don't know. It's just a fun touch. It looks like a space boot, basically, but if you don't like modern aesthetic, just get some mud on it, which is what they're designed for. Yeah, the sole is 7.5 millimeters thick, so even though it sounds like a really thick sole or a medium thick sole, it's got a freakish amount of flexibility, and that's because the lugs are super deep. They're like claws, so this is why I use it for trail running on slippery and super steep terrain, because it grips in there, and they're chevron lugs, so they're angled like this for going up hills, and then they're angled in the opposite direction for going down hills. And they are a little bit more dense in the back just to give you some more protection, but this is one that I would use pretty much exclusively for trails. It feels fine going on roads, but there's so much space in between here, so little surface area on the lugs that they will wear down faster if you're going on a lot of rocky terrain or pavement, that sort of thing. But then one last note, even though it is thin, I can actually wear these down to 0, especially if I'm trail running, because you can put a wool felt insole on the bottom for some separation from the cold, and then you can wear a couple layers of Injinji merino wool toe socks, and you're like golden. If you're running, you're fast hiking, then the water resistance plus that, it works really well. For a sneaker, I love the Mooky shoes Duna because it is so lightweight. It's like a feather. And this mid-cut is really good for multiple seasons. It's got a hemp outer and then a cotton lining on the inside. So it's a good, you know, fall shoe. It's a good summer shoe. It's light enough where you don't get super hot. But then, you know, it's got like the mid height for a little bit colder weather to protect your ankles. And in terms of the width, Mooky shoes, it's kind of weird because they look, if you look at the back, it doesn't look super wide, right? But then they have a ton of volume on the top. There's a lot of room with the laces. And they're also, because this rubber is so flexible, they can really splay out to the point where they become an extra wide shoe. Some of their shoes, like the Jasper, which has the same exact sole, is actually too wide for me, but I find if you're someone with medium width feet like me, having, you know, a more high cut upper like this works really well. And I don't have any problems with slipping, but you know, you can get them as snug as you want. I really love the kind of like rough, this is undyed, it's also organic hemp and cotton. So it's a very natural looking sneaker, which I love. Like the older I get, the more I just want natural materials and kind of try to stay away from synthetic if possible. It's not always possible, but they also have a stitched sole for durability. And then the sole itself is natural rubber. It's 3.5 millimeter thick. So this is the most flexible barefoot brand, in my opinion, Mooky shoes is. And then it's got a minimal tread, so mostly for urban casual. You could take it on some light trails, some packed dirt, or maybe some light gravel. If you do too much of that, you know, you might wear the sole out. You might start getting holes in there. But you do have to keep in mind with this one in particular that it's very light colored, so I keep it away from mud and I mostly use it for city, urban, casual use, stuff like that. I think it would be really great if they made like a brown version of this shoe that had some kind of natural dye. But overall, it's a great casual option for multiple seasons with some really nice natural materials. For indoor use in the winter, these are the KOW slippers. I use these a lot because they have a blend of wool and bamboo. So the wool is warming, it's temperature regulating, it's really good at wicking moisture, and then bamboo is cooling. So you've got kind of like the best of both worlds. And they have a lower cut version. They also have a summer version, depending on when you're gonna be using them the most or what the climate's like where you are. But this is the mid cut. It's probably what I'm using the most now because it provides a little bit more coverage in the winter. Like the lower one, your ankles kind of get a little bit cool. But it's got this button, which I like, very minimal design, but it works. And I'm honestly surprised at the durability because this is the lower one. I've used these for more than a year. And yeah, honestly, like the weaving looks really good. There are a few fuzzies, you know, but overall the slipper is intact, and it kind of surprised me because I thought they would fall apart, but they haven't. And the other thing that I love about KOWs is that they're soft on the top and then they've got a leather sole, but it's more of like a suede soft type leather. So it feels really great to walk on. It gives you a little bit of extra insulation and durability because if you just had this on the bottom, that probably would wear out faster. But it's stitched on, which is great for durability. And these are excellent ninja slippers because you are just completely silent when you're wearing them. Sometimes I will just scare the bejesus out of my mom, or if I'm over at my dad's house and I just like walk up and they just don't even hear me. It's like being completely barefoot. But yeah, you know, the breathability is good. There's a little bit of space here, you know, it's like close enough where it can be warm in the winter, but then when your feet are moving, you can feel a little bit of air coming through there. You can wear them barefoot, they feel great that way. I like to wear toe socks with them, especially in the winter, because my feet are kind of like this, you know, from playing soccer as a kid and wearing like pointy soccer cleats and Adidas Sambas. So when I get toe socks, it spreads my toes out and it gives a little bit better airflow, which is something you don't get in just a one-piece shoe or sandal or slipper like that. So it also keeps them clean, which is nice because then I don't have to wash them. That's another thing that can make a slipper like this last a lot longer. Finally, we've got the Wildly Northwolf, and this isn't a boot that I get to wear as much as I would like to because it doesn't really have a lot of waterproofing. It's a winter boot and it is very warm, but it's best used for dry climates. Where it's cold. It's fine if it's just like, you know, a little bit of parking lot slush, but there's a membrane in here, so it helps somewhat. Like if it's raining, lightly raining, or if there's a little bit of slush, it's fine in snow. But anyways, the upper, this is my favorite upper of all time. It looks like wearing a herringbone suit. It is just so freaking classy. And that's one of the reasons why I just look for as many opportunities to wear this boot as humanly possible because I think it's so cool. It's got a medium wide toe box. It's not quite as wide as other brands. It's a little bit more narrow than Vivo Barefoot, but it's definitely got more room than most boots, and it is squared off in the front, which gives you a little more room if you have kind of a spread out toe shape. But it's very flexible. It feels like wearing absolutely nothing at all. Like I remember I talked about this in my review, but one day I was in the car driving and I'm just like, I was about to get out to walk to the grocery store. I was in the car and I'm just thinking like, I'm not wearing any shoes. Like I literally couldn't even feel them. It was just the most amazing, well, lack of feeling, I guess. But yeah, in terms of the sole, it's 3.5 millimeters. So like Mooky shoes, just an absurd amount of flexibility. It feels almost like being completely barefoot. And then they've got this split tabby style, which adds even more flexibility, which I love. And yeah, overall it's kind of a minimal sole, so it's, you know, it's meant for urban terrain. You can take it on some light trails. It's got a decent amount of resistance to it, but I wouldn't, you know, take it on super rocky terrain or gravel all the time because it will wear it down. Some people have asked if this portion here lets water through, and it does not because they've got a little rubber lining there. But like I said, overall, the water-resistant membrane is not going to keep water out of this boot, or at least very much water. So it's definitely something you wear to like movie theater, you know, a date, going out to eat, something like that, where you want something really classy, but you don't need a ton of performance for really nasty terrain. But yeah, I've run in them. That's something I love about a barefoot boot, when I can run in it, even if it's just a casual boot, you know, like if I just feel like I can take off running. But overall, these I think are the most unique barefoot shoes I've ever seen in terms of design, and yeah. All right, so those are my most used barefoot shoes of 2024, but if you'd like to support the channel, you can shop with the referral links down below, browse and filter more products with the shoe finder tool at my website barefootwear.org, or watch my zero drop transition video to learn more about barefooting. Finally, if you have a question about barefoot shoes, or you want to let me know what your favorite pair of barefoot shoes is, let me know in the comments. And thank you for watching. I'll catch you next time. Peace.